Should just mention that permission's been requested to videotape this meeting. Get camera set up over there in the corner. If anybody doesn't wish to be filmed, just make sure that you stay out of the sight lines of the camera. So with that, I'll just ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please. Councillor Blair, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? That's carried. One set of minutes to adopt from May 17th. So again, just ask for a motion to adopt. Councillor Blair, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? That's carried. Should mention two of our councillors are away on personal matters this evening. Moving to 4.1. First of all, just a motion to approve the committee of the whole meeting for May 17th. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Blair, all in favor? It's carried. 4.1.2, that's the recommendation to provide assistance to the Gibsons Birding Club with respect to the repair of the ice plant, and that they'd be allocated $5,000 from the General Capital Reserve Fund. Councillor Blair moves that. Second, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? 4.1.3, just direction to staff to bring back a report at a future meeting with respect to the potential for sites for mobile food vending sites. This arose out of a discussion about the possibility of trying to increase some sort of tourist interest and activity down there in some parts of the town. So at this point, it's just to have a look at what the possibilities are. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Blair, all in favor? Carried. 4.1.4, just to endorse the 2016-2019 strategic plan. So, Mandy, you guys are working on the actual kind of copies of that, sorry.
That's correct. The last page right now is just to sort of design layout, which is being done again in-house, and we're sort of 90% done, so expect we'll be there at our next meeting.
All right, so just a motion to endorse that. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Blair, in favor? Carried. 4.2.1. First of all, just ask to receive those minutes. A motion for that. Councillor Blair, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Blair, something you want to comment at this point, or just?
No, just note very thorough discussion, as you can see. Great minute taking, and making progress. Slowly, quickly coming to our mid-July deadline, and lots of ideas being discussed and circling in on some solutions.
Okay, great. Look forward to that. 5.1, Celine.
Thank you, Mayor Rowe. Just to note that the ministerial approval for this bylaw was received today, so we're good for council to adopt this resolution. If you want to proceed with an alternative approval process for the borrowing, the Director of Finance brought over the bylaw for 3 readings in May, outlining the projects related to this debt. So if you have any questions on the report, answer those.
Okay. So are you saying to proceed with it, is there an addition to this recommendation that's needed, or incorporated within that, right? Yeah, okay. Just for the residents that are here, this has to do with, if I can just locate the number here. Plan to borrow some funds, just about $392,000. Mainly to focus on Hillcrest Road, which is one of our poorest roads in town. What we're looking at doing, because the town really does not have the funds to maintain the roads to the levels that they should be, and we would like to, we're going to be experimenting with what's called a chip seal process on Hillcrest Road and certain other roads in town, in order to see how that stands up, because it can be done at a cost that is substantially less than what would be normally required to maintain our roads. Our engineers tell us we need $500,000 a year just to keep our roads in shape, and I can tell you we even got $5,000 for that. So that's the reason for this. Councillor Blair?
question. We briefly talked without nailing anything down about consultation process around this. I think focused on Hillcrest and Councillor White brought it up. See that as part of the AAP, there'll be an information package, and then obviously people have the opportunity to propose it. But is there any plans for open house or any discussion besides the mailer package?
Short answer, yes. We're going to have a public information session. I'm working with consultant right now just to help us with that, and not 100% sure on what form it's going to take. But he's aware of the timelines.
Right, thank you for reminding us of that. Okay, so just to move to the recommendation then, Councillor Lariat, Councillor Stanjanko, all in favor? It's carried. 5.2 is to request to raise the flag over Town Hall during 2016 Pride Week. So that was for one day, I believe, Celine, is that correct?
That's correct.
What was the date on that? Right, Friday, June 17th. Make that motion. Okay, thank you, Councilor Lariat. Second, Councilor Stanjanko. All in favor? That's carried. 5.3, Ian.
Thank you, Mayor Rose. So it's that time of year where we get into some annual reporting of financial information to the ministry. And the next two reports, this one and the one following, are separate reporting matters. The first one, the Statement of Financial Information, or SOFI as we like to call it, is a report that is required by the Ministry of Finance through the Financial Information Act, and it deals with a number of matters. It deals with reporting of council remuneration and expenses, the same for senior staff, and also a section relating to vendor payments over $25,000, and those are amounts that come out of the regulations that support this act. And the list, so the report is attached, and it's fairly straightforward. As I say, we do this once a year. It has to be filed by June 30th with the ministry in Victoria. And then the next one is a report also required annually by the community charter, specific section, I think it's 198 or 192, but it's more specific, and it just deals with council remunerations that need to be publicly reported. If you have any questions, certainly be happy to answer.
Thank you. I have had a look at them. There's nothing that rises for myself and anyone else. No? Okay, if not, then ask for a motion to both 5.3 and 5.4 to receive those reports and to approve the Statement of Financial Information. Councilor Stanjanko, Councilor Lariat, second. All in favor of them? It's carried. 5.5, temporary use permit. Andre?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report follows up on an earlier report 2 weeks ago, where we discussed the proposal and request to allow for a residential only use on a property at 444 Garden Point Road. And the temporary use is about allowing the residential use without the commercial use, because in the C5 zone that applies to this property, you're supposed to have commercial use and an accessory residential use. So this permit is proposed to allow for the residential only use. And the neighbors have been notified the last couple of weeks. Advertisement has been placed. I haven't received any responses. So today we need to see if there's anybody in the audience present, and after that council can consider this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the building just down by the public market that used to have a hair salon in it, and is going back to temporary temporary residential use. So is there anyone here that is wishing to speak to that particular application? And seeing none, okay. So in that case, I'll just ask for a motion for the recommendations that we see here at 5.5. Councillor Sanjenko, second. Councillor Valeria, all in favor? Carried. Council reports, Councillor Valeria.
I'm going to keep it short. I've just, myself and my family are happy to be home. And I realize looking back at my calendar that I've missed a lot of things in the last 3 weeks that I would have liked to have been at, including Bike to Work Week. And so I don't have a whole lot to report, but I'm still promising that written report, which will now be probably the whole first half of 2016.
Councillor Sanjenko.
Report out on a couple of things. I met with the chamber staff, the Gibsons chamber staff, and I know that they'll be coming to council in the near future, but I was excited to hear how successful their Makers Fair was, and they'll be reporting out on that. They're also going to be coming back to us with some updates on asking us if we'd like to go out with them on following up on the business walks, so going back to the businesses that we visited last year and showing them the reports that were done up and asking if there was any other questions. So just to tie that up full circle, they're meeting with our planning staff. They're going to be putting out a survey just regarding a sign bylaw to help get a bit more feedback on that. So it was just good to sit down with them and just have a bit of a conversation outside of a board meeting. And I wanted to just make special mention, I know it's up here in our correspondence, but Mayor Rowe and I were at the AGM for the Gibsons Public Market, and I just wanted to personally say how proud I was of that group of people, their passion and their vision, and yeah, just moving that. It was a really good afternoon to be there.
Great, thank you. The only thing I wanted to mention this evening is just once again to congratulate the Gibsons Marina. This weekend they were awarded the blue flag, which you'll see flying down the marina now. This is part of a program that began in 1985 in France, and it's to promote sustainable development in freshwater marine areas. And to qualify, the marina has to have high standards in water quality, environmental management, environmental education, and safety. And Gibsons Marina is the only one that has been given this designation in British Columbia. So congratulations to the efforts of that organization. Okay, correspondence, we've got 3 items there, which I'll just ask to receive. First of all, Councillor Valeria, Councillor Sanjenko, all in favor? Yes, carried. Do you wish to say anything further on the public market, or you covered that? Okay. All right. Okay, the work is underway. 7.3, we're waiting to hear for meetings. Manny?
On the dates, yeah.
The dates, yeah. Okay, so let council know once we've heard from them. Okay. And just give some thought to whether we want to look at it or speak with any particular ministers at UBCM. We can talk about that later, but just put that in the back of your minds for the moment. Yeah. Okay, 9.1, zoning amendment, Parkland Phase 3. Andre?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm handing out a updated zoning bylaw amendment with a map change, and I'll explain with a couple of slides what the change is. I'm also explaining something that came up through an inquiry to council about some changes to the subdivision plan compared to what was presented a couple of years ago. After that, I'll go into the details of the staff report. So this is a zoning application for the Parkland Phase 3. And on this map, you can see Phase 1, which is the build-out section, largely built out in this area from 2012. Phase 2 is this corner here, which already was zoned together with Phase 1 and is currently under construction. The servicing-wise, the first building permit applications have been submitted. And this area approximately is for Phase 3, and that will be the next phase for the Parkland subdivision. Let me see. So this was the map that initially was in the zoning bylaw, and the difference is here on this particular corner. Because something that the planners weren't particularly aware of is that that particular lot was actually extending over the road the application of Phase 1 there. So in your updated bylaw, you have a new map which looks like this. That particular lot has been removed, and the change of this lot has been changed, and that's meant to address that encroachment on Phase 1. There's still a little bit of an encroachment on this particular lot, but it's a fairly small amount, and we'll have to follow up with a road closure proposal for that, because it does involve a little bit of a closure of the road right here in this little corner. Let me see. Then another thing that came up through the through an inquiry from concerned residents was about a green belt that was initially in the plan in previous years and is no longer there. Just want to show you what that is all about. So this is an earlier subdivision layout, a conceptual layout from a couple of years ago, where Phase 1 is located here, largely built out as planned. And you can see here where Phase 3 is, this area in the middle here. There was a green belt conceptually penciled in, and there were lots of things conceptually planned in the past in the Upper Gibsons neighborhood plan. And another thing that was conceptually planned was a stormwater pipe going to take water from this area to the ocean. And that's the background of a change that resulted in the newer layout. I'm just going to hand it over for Dave for a sec to talk about that and what the change was there.
So the change in regards to the stormwater, initially there is a pond currently on that site, probably more or less in the middle of that road. Yeah, okay, there you can see the site. And that was intended as a temporary stormwater detention area. So it allows the larger flows from the more significant rainfall events to collect there and then be released at a controlled rate that matches pre-development flows, and they go out to Sharman Creek, correct? That's something. The plan at the time was that a pipe would go out towards the east and eventually make its way all the way over to North Road and down School Road. Rough cost in today's dollars is around $4 million. We're exploring right now an alternative to that because that $4 million, one of the things was that $4 million price tag was just far too rich for not only the town, but any individual developer. It just wouldn't be viable, and it wouldn't allow, or it would be a significant stumbling block for development unless numerous developers got together. But the other part is that it is part of our asset management planning, especially in regards to natural assets. And so what we're looking to do now is to make this pond permanent, and coupled with some other work in White Tower Park, and enhancements to Sharman Creek and enhancements to the existing pond, we are going to be coming up with a natural solution instead of the $4 million pipe solution. We're right now it's looking very good conceptually. We need to come up with some more detailed designs on that, but it's going to save, in addition to everything else, it's going to save the town roughly $50,000 a year that we would have to set aside to replace that diversion that was originally planned. So as we learn more and as we change our plans, in response to what we've learned, some of the development plans change as well. And so that pond, as I say, now becomes permanent, but it's actually moving over a little bit closer to the reservoir. And it's going to be an enhanced area. It's going to be fairly natural looking. It's going to have walking paths in the vicinity of it, and that actually exceeds the green space that we would have had in the initial the initial plan that is shown on that slide that Andre previously showed. Is that good for you?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Going back at the eventual map of the subdivision bylaw, the rezoning bylaw, that green strip, but that was initially there, is now replaced with this area here, where also the retention pond will be located. So it's that area has been moved. Okay, moving on to other items of the report. As part of rezoning applications, we always discuss with the applicants affordable housing and community amenity contributions. And in this case, with regards to housing, we explored an option to provide rental housing or a cash contribution, and the developer has indicated that they preferred a cash contribution. We had a discussion about that, trying to find an amount that would work both for us and for the applicants, looking at what was done with the George and the previous phase of this apartment subdivision. And we came up together, the staff and applicants, with a number of $30,000 for the 2 units, for each of the 2 units required for this phase. And that's the proposal that the developer and staff put forward to council as a cash contribution for affordable housing. And with regards to community amenities, there's a letter attached to the staff report outlining a list of amenities and things that the developer had done in the previous phase. Not just for the phase, but those are items that were provided for all of the existing lands, which extends from this area all the way to Payne Road, because there's probably 5 or 6 phases in Parkland altogether. And for example, the Parkland dedication was provided right at the start for the whole area, which exceeded 5%. This was more like 15% of the area was provided as park land. There are also significant engineering costs related to water pump stations, geothermal hookups, and facilities like tennis courts and the trail to Park Road. The developer made the point that we felt that amenities for that whole area had been provided right at the start when started with the first phase of the development. And staff, we feel that's fair. That's definitely was very significant what was provided. There is one amenity as part of this phase, and that relates to landscaping. When we look at the landscaping for the development permit, by the way, there is a development permit for the subdivision, but it will be provided to you at the next meeting probably. But as part of that, we discussed if landscaping along the existing berm to the south and around the water reservoir could be improved. There was some landscaping put in the past, but not all of it survived, and it looks a little bit patchy and a little bit bare. And we agreed that as part of the landscaping that will take place around the retention pond, some of the landscaping will actually be extended along the whole berm and around the water reservoir. And that way we improve the public space in the area. Let me see something to maybe show you quickly. Here is this is a very blurry picture and it's very vague and conceptual. This is the Upper Gibsons neighborhood plan, and this is part of the concept that was put in there for the whole area. And the Parkland area is these 2 parcels here on the left hand side. And right now we're talking about this area here, and you see there's a mix of, there should be green corridors, there's housing and some roads. You can see that Woodsworth is actually has a different alignment than this conceptual road that was put in the past. Just wanted to give you that as a background. And you can see now on the subdivision plan and the zoning plan that this gradually gets filled in based on the direction of the neighborhood plan, and this plan does fit well with that neighborhood plan. In this case, for example, the green corridor is down south here, the berm next to the water reservoir, which is here. There's a green strip going up. and then this is the property next over, different owners, and we'll have to do similar things to extend the concept plan of the Upper Gibsons neighborhood plan. Alright, so with that, for the zoning part, you have your report now, and the recommendation is to give first and second reading to the bylaw and go for a public hearing early July. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Any specific questions that arisen from any members of council at this point? Have you obviously, I'm gathering there's some people here from the neighborhood, and there'll be an opportunity for public hearing to hear what's being said, but there's some salient points that come to your attention at this point? Are there any specific points that have been raised at this point?
The one letter that was sent to council had some concerns about possibly a lack of green space because of one corridor was going to be removed. At least that's what the writer of the letter thought. I hope we explained today that it was not removed, it was moved somewhere else. So that's the only thing I've heard so far.
Councillor Sanjanko?
Just wanted to thank Andre for explaining actually that green space, because I think it's important to have that understanding that it's amazing to have a green belt, but if we can actually create an eco asset that saves our town money and looks at different solutions to the problems that we're having, that's exactly the way that we're heading. So I'm glad to see that there is some initiative being taken to try to figure out what some of those solutions are. It's part of how Gibsons is building our brand. And to the residents that are here, I want to thank you for coming out and for being engaged and caring about your neighborhood. When you're not part of council, it's interesting to know how to navigate and whatnot, but being here and hearing the report and hearing what we hear as part of it, your chance for your input is at the public hearing on July 5th at 6:45 p.m. So I encourage you to come back as well on that date.
Thank you. Anything else? No? Okay. So in that case, I'll ask for a motion to move the recommendation to Councillor Larry, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, so that will come to a public hearing July 5th at 6:45 here in the council chambers, and be an opportunity for submissions from anyone at all that has suggestions or concerns about the proposed rezoning. Okay, any inquiries at this point? Inquiries, by the way, are inquiries. Our inquiries are limited to 2 minutes and a 10-minute period. Donna?
Yes, I would like to ask about the chip process for the banks.
Yes.
I'd like to ask about the surfacing of the roads. We're going to do that bit of an experiment.
Sure.
An experiment.
Okay. I should add too, by the way, part of those funds is to rectify an issue in Parkland, but not with the chip seal. I don't think that's different. It's concrete that we're talking about there. That was an issue that was brought to our attention by residents. David?
David, could I just say that my question was not so much about the details of the chip process, but just one detail, and that is we have had difficulties before with the underfill in some of the roads, more of the older roads, I think, than the newer ones. But I was wondering if this chip process, this surfacing, would be affected by something sort of settling underneath, and whether that might be a problem with these particular ones you're going to try, and whether or not that process, if it works, would be suitable for some of our roads that are sinking, you might want to call it, or lumping or something. Thanks.
Chip sealing can go over existing asphalt, or it can go over gravel roads, and it's a tar-like substance that's spread out over the road, and then fairly uniform gravel is spread out over top of it, and that gets bedded into the liquid tar, for want of a better word. It's not exactly right, but close enough. Eventually, after a month or two, it'll begin to look like a regular road. Slightly rougher surface, not so that you would particularly notice it.
Like macadam maybe,
Not familiar with the road, so there are some chip seal roads around. I think the only one that I know of in our neck of the woods is Henry Road up near the Public Works Yard. So after they've been there for a while, you don't even notice the difference. As far as the so as Mayor Rowe pointed out, the cost of doing a chip seal road is a fraction of hot mix asphalt. And one of the benefits is because of the lesser outlay, it's less critical for us to be making sure that we're doing the full, 1 meter plus depth of proper gravel. Having said that, we do also take out localized areas that are obviously depressed, and we try and shear them up. No, so we would dig those out and fill them in with proper gravel and then chip seal over top of that. The other thing with chip sealing is that really depending on conditions and traffic and so on and so forth, you can get anywhere from 5 to 20 years out of a chip seal road. I'm really rooting for the 20-year mark. But even if we got 5 years out of it, it's still more beneficial for us to do that. And so as Mayor pointed out, we're doing a number of different roads, different types of roads, so some through roads, some cul-de-sacs, no high volume roads, no collector roads, no bus routes. And we will monitor it over the next number of years to see how many years we get out of it and see how successful product it is for us.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Any other cards at this point? Jenny, lady there. Just state your name and residence, please.
Leslie Farr. My question
Sorry,
is on the...
Ms. Farr, are you a resident of the town of Gibsons?
Yes, Parkland. My question is on the relocation of the pond in phase 3. What will that entail and how will that affect the aquatic ecosystem?
David?
Well, the pond is a constructed pond to start with. So it's essentially, yes, it is getting moved. It's going to get dug out, and I imagine a lot of the plantings, we're hoping that they'll shift over there. Right now, that pond is actually more overgrown than it should be. We've got a lot of alders in there, but a lot of the plantings, they'll be reestablished in there, and in a couple or 3 years, you probably won't notice the difference. It'll be done at a time that it's appropriate so that we're not getting a high volume of stormwater coming into it and then we're not causing siltation further on downstream.
Thank you. Any further inquiries, Stephen? Okay, just before we move on to close, if there are people that do wish to make submissions with respect to that particular public hearing and you're not able to physically be here, by all means you can send in written submissions and they will be considered at that hearing as well, just in case you're not able to attend. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Sorry about that. Just before you close, the open agenda notes that we're closing the meeting under section 91K of the community charter, if I can get you to amend that to include 91E of the charter as well, which deals with the acquisition, disposition, and exploitation of improvements as council considers that it could be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. There was an item that was added after the agenda was distributed.
Right. Okay. Okay. Councilor Marriott moves that. Councilor Sanjenko, all in favor? Let's close. We'll just recess for about 10 minutes to get the chance to close the meeting.